Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Josh.
And this is NFGeeks. Josh, you had a good idea to talk about today, and that was about sort of the symbolism that goes on in mythology and the religion and all that, and that's very much a part of NF thinking. I think that a lot of religious thought is invented by NFs because it always exists in this symbolic place,
right.
This poetic, symbolic place. So that's good. I think that makes us as NFs, and us in particular, good interpreters to have this conversation about how myths, symbols, and archetypes, that's what we're really talking about,
right.
How these archetypes represent things and what are they representing and what they mean and what they mean to us as NFs.
Right.
So why don't you start us off? You had some ideas you wanted to talk about first, and so let's get off on that.
I kind of wanted to go into how like everyone always puts Christianity as being like a Judaic religion.
Solely Judaic.
Solely, but it has a lot of Greek influences.
Absolutely.
And maybe even more so.
Yes, it's extremely Greco-Roman, just a little bit in the structure. Morally and theologically, it's kind of Judaic, but metaphysically, in terms of the metaphysics of it, it's Greek.
Right.
It's symbolically Greek, and the institution of it, how it works in the world, is Roman. That's why this sort of like, it's our way or the highway that goes on in Christianity. That's from the Roman Empire, seeping into Christian thought, because that was the structure. Okay, so let's talk about the ancient Greeks in terms of what symbols or representations do you think exist? I mean, I have my ideas, but where are you going with that?
I think like if you read into like philosophy, a lot of like Platonic thought is kind of in Christianity. And I like draw if you can draw a lot of correlations with like Greek myths, like the Hercules Zeus relationship as like Jesus and God kind of.
Oh yeah, that's all right. Let's talk about the first one. That's a great idea. The interesting thing about Christ's journey. And you can almost say this about the Christian's journey, but what's interesting about Christ's journey is that if you take the philosopher king allegory of the cave model, the cave of ignorance and all that, and truth, Jesus runs in the opposite direction. He starts outside, comes down, and then goes back upside, and then comes down again. Then goes back up again. But he actually starts at the top and goes down and goes up. He's not like a normal human starts at the bottom, goes up, comes back. So the coming back is the same to help people. But the reality is he starts up top, comes down, goes up, comes down, comes up. So that allegory is the journey of Christ. Right. I would think. What do you think? Do you agree?
Yeah, it makes sense because he's born special.
Right.
So
and everyone hates him, just like Plato says. Everyone hates him. They try to kill him.
Yeah.
It works.
Like any great philosopher king.
Yes. In fact, this is a great archetype. People make the mistake that Jesus in the narrative, and when we say Jesus, we're talking about the symbolic representation in the gospel narrative. Right. That's not the person. No. That's a narrative of a person. Who the person was, who knows? But I actually think this relates to the person. But I'm pretty sure that Jesus and all who are like Jesus are ENFJs.
Yes. We agree on this.
Yes, absolutely.
And one thing that you said was to me one day that like you said was going to blow my mind, and it did, was when you said when you read scripture and you read parts that are supposed like quotes of things.
Yeah,
that
like
Jesus,
the parables. That's
like
what
the parables, like things that Jesus said. You're reading like the super entity of the conscious of ENFJ. So that's like your conscious. Like at its highest, you're linking with, and and I thought about that, and I was like, whoa. Yeah, intense.
you're reading your own consciousness, and that's true for everyone else. When you're reading the parables, I might even have said this already, but I don't care. If you're reading the parables, you're reading the actual Jesus's words, Like you're hearing how he talks. Okay.
Right.
Whether he like walked on water and raised Lazarus, who knows? But and that's not saying it didn't happen. But when you're reading his words, you're reading him.
Right.
You are reading your own self.
I'm reading my own ENFJ-ness.
Yes.
From another person.
In another time, in another place, and not just any person.
Like the person.
Yeah. Tough dog.
Not only the ENFJ, but the person, human person.
Yeah, that's right. So now I ask you something. Have you had that experience? Have you read anything and been like, wow, I really, can you see it?
A little bit, yeah. Like when he talks about, like whenever he talks about like forgiveness and stuff and letting things go, I think about that because I always used to like harbor things for a really long time, and then like I eventually came to the conclusion that like stuff is gonna happen to you. You can't let it like continuously affect you, so you gotta just forget about it and move on and keep going with your like doing your own thing, living your own life. And so like I kind of make that connection a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that all the archetypes, again, I'm talking about in the narrative. Although, here's the thing, the real Jesus probably was an ENFJ because this is sort of coming from him.
Right.
Well, let me go back a bit. I think he's an ENFJ because he has disciples, he's teaching. People think because he goes into this place of prayer that somehow that makes him an INFJ, but ENFJs go away and go into places of prayer all the time.
Because
or just meditation.
We want to get it right.
Yes.
The part when he's by himself and then he goes, that's because he wants to get it right. Because like you said, like ENFJs are like great teachers and great leaders, and he does both of those things. But before we bring something to someone, we want to make sure we get it right, it's as perfect as we can get it, and we want to make sure that if anyone challenges it, we already have like the counterpoint, like kind of like with the tax collector story.
Oh yeah, or the Pharisees. Boy, this is great. Think of the way he talks to the Pharisees and the Sadducees.
They have like this witty like, well, what about this? And he already has the comeback like, and he just shuts them down.
Right.
And that's what we're doing when we're by ourselves, getting the idea ready to present.
Yeah, that's right. So ready, we're going to go into your consciousness. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Let he who has no sins throw the first stone.
All you people that are going to tell me I'm going to go to hell.
Yeah, that's right. Flip, right? That's the little witty little, oh yeah? Well, okay, you do it, gang. Okay, you want to kill her? Go ahead, throw the first stone. That's right. And also the fact that he talks in front of thousands. There's always thing, on like the Beatitudes. He's talking in front of 2,000 people,
right.
3,000 people. Like,
not phased at all.
Right. Just
the mass of people.
Right. That seems very ENFJ to me.
Right.
So that's very interesting too. So because he's also an NF, as obviously we're assuming he's an NF. But I think this is true about other prophets. I think Buddha was an ENFJ, and I think Buddha in the narratives of the sutras is an ENFJ, and I think Muhammad was an ENFJ.
Definitely. And I said that I think because I was talking about this in a class that I had because it was a history class, and we were talking about the influence of like the spread of Islam and how like that was a part of a giant spread of all kinds of ideas and inventions from like the Middle East and stuff over into Europe. And so we were talking about how Muhammad spread Islam, and I instantly thought like, oh, he had to have been an ENFJ because only an ENFJ, because like with Jesus, you gotta give him like a little less because like Jesus like had powers, like he did miracles.
Right.
Muhammad didn't.
No, that's right.
All Muhammad had was like the poems, and that's it.
That's right.
So he had to have been so charismatic that as soon as someone heard him, they were like, "Yep, that's got to be from God. All right, I'll go with this."
That's right. Okay, and this is Muhammad didn't have any. You're right. There was no magic. Muhammad had to do everything solely as a human being.
Just with word.
Just right, and his wits. Another thing too that's important. People think that Islam's all war and blowing up things, and that's not true.
Very peaceful.
Yes, Muhammad's battles with people are rare in the narrative and are purposeful and are not meant to kill everybody.
Right.
They're really not. When he goes to Mecca finally, it's not a bloodbath. It's the opposite of a bloodbath. So that's a very interesting symbol. What other Greek ones were you thinking about?
I was saying like the Hercules Zeus father-son relationship with like Jesus and God.
Yeah, that's true, and this is controversial. But one of the things about Mary is that there's no real archetypal tradition in Judaism about a virgin birth, but there are in Greek culture.
Greek cultures,
all of the gods and all of the demigod heroes are the result of Zeus making love to a virgin.
Right.
and creating that person, like Hercules or some of the others. So I think there is a symbolic thing going on with that.
Right.
Absolutely. And they're borrowing, Christianity is borrowing that archetype
From
Greek culture to explain the nature of Christianity to Greeks.
Right.
So that other Greeks, so Greeks even explaining it to Greeks.
Right.
In Greek
Because
language.
it's like he's half human, half God. Like he has to go through the journey to redeem himself. It's like you can draw a lot of similarities.
Yes. The final decision about Jesus is that he was simultaneously human and God, which
Right.
is sort of a mystery, but that was the final. But right.
He
But
doesn't-
honestly, in the coming to that, not everybody thought that. You know, that
Right.
was sort of a compromise. There were plenty who didn't think that about Jesus. They lost that argument. That's all. You know. Any other specifically from Greek before we move on?
Not that I can think of as of right now.
Okay. What other mythological symbols then have meaning towards you in that you could see sort of either an NF connection or a discussion out of?
I think, well, my favorite Greek myth was always Achilles.
Well, that's interesting from the Iliad. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the Iliad.
And
Now, why is that? Because I have my own opinions about Achilles.
I like Achilles because, to me, he represents he embodies one person that was so great and so unstoppable, and that this one person could have so much of an impact. This one small person could have so much of an impact on something as so big as wars and such and things. So it kind of is an inspiring thing, but also that even someone as great as that has their weakness, has their downfall. So you should always stay humble and be mindful of that.
Yeah,
I kind of
and-
like that whole.
Yeah,
thing
the
about
point
it.
in the Iliad is that he's sort of a jackass.
Right,
And
he's
doesn't
arrogant.
want to, he's a selfish jackass, and he's like, I'll show you, Greeks, you think you could do this without me? I'm going to stay in my tent.
Right.
Until tragedy hits. And then he realized, oh no, I need to put my talents elsewhere. He remembers he should be a jackass after all. Yeah, that's an interesting one. The Iliad is filled with all of those things. There's a speech in the Iliad between Nestor and I think it's Patroclus. See, I know my Iliad. That Patroclus is like, oh my God, this war sucks, and why are we even doing this? And Nestor explains to him why we're fighting, and it's the same thing that they always say, all the soldiers say, you're fighting for the guy next to you. Who knows if this is right, wrong, are we fighting for the right thing, are we going to win this war, are we just, who the hell knows? Never get to the bottom of that as a soldier, but you fight for the warrior that's next to you, that's who you're fighting for, your fellow warrior, to keep him alive, and he's fighting for you. And honestly, the military's been saying that ever since.
Right.
All right, what else? What other things interest you? We have about 3 minutes left.
Maybe how people think about symbology when they have tattoos and stuff like that.
Oh, sure, that's great. You have tattoos.
Right.
Being our NF thug.
NF thug.
He's been.
I put the hug in thug.
That's right. He puts the hug and thug as our NF thug. I guess everybody has a thug in them, and you have yours. Let's talk about some of your tattoos. What are some of the tattoos that you have that you'd like to show, or that are
This one I have is my initials in Hindi Indian.
Oh wow, let's see that again. So I know people who can read.
It looks like it's off kilter, but it's just kind of the way I'm holding my arm and the way it's rotated.
All right.
It kind of has more balance than it looks.
Okay. And why is that meaningful to you? And why is it meaningful that it's in Hindi?
Well, I'm not Indian or anything. I don't even know anyone that is or have any friends or anything like that. But I wanted to get they're the initials of my name, so it's it's kind of like an identifier, but I wanted it to be in a different language, to make it more esoteric, I guess, if you will.
And symbolic.
Symbolic, and I chose Hindi Indian because it was one of the only languages that had my initials and still kind of looked cool, but also I always admired Indian culture and their religions and how peaceful they were and how they were always I went through a period where I was very into meditating and Tai Chi and stuff like that.
Right. Well, he is an ENFJ, so you can't
So
fail him for that.
That's why I went with that one.
All right, we only have a few minutes or even less, but why don't you? Yeah, you can show your other two.
I got one today, actually.
Yeah, and I'd like to talk to you. Why are you getting tattoos at all? Like, what's the meaning of that? Well, this is birds. This is the feathers.
It's a feather that breaks apart and turns into birds. Yeah.
Oh boy, that's almost like the. There's all sorts of things going on with that symbol.
Yeah.
You have like many from one.
Right. There's like
life from death. I mean, there's
being
also
liberated, like freedom.
Yeah.
There's like feathers, like are symbols for like wisdom and stuff.
Yeah. Why do you put tattoos specifically?
I like tattoos because they're a good way of expressing yourself. They're a good way of telling a story without actually having to verbally tell it. People can kind of just look at you and get a sense of your personality and things about you and who you are and stuff like that.
All right, great. Well, that's just enough
I have
time.
a music note on my neck.
Yeah. I think people have seen that one. There you go. I don't have any tattoos because I'm a big girly baby and I would cry.
Not as painful as you think.
No way.
It's like someone's just pinching you over.
Yeah, I'd faint. I couldn't do it. And I'm old too. It would look ridiculous. All right, great. Thank you, Josh. Great job.